At the end of Jacob's life, he called his sons Joseph to bring his grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh, to his side so that he could bless them before he died. As Jacob blessed them, he prophesied over them these words, Genesis 48, verse 20. So he blessed them that day, saying, By you Israel will bless, saying, May God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And thus he set Ephraim before Manasseh. Why did Jacob single out Joseph's two sons? What is the significance of this blessing and prophecy? And why is the younger son, Ephraim, listed first? I'm Dan Cathcart, and this is Shadows of the Messiah. Ephraim and Manasseh are Joseph's two sons that God blessed him with during his time he was separated from his family. After Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of preparing for the coming years of famine, he gave Joseph a wife who bore him two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Yes, Manasseh is the older son. Look at Genesis 41, verses 50 through 52. And to Joseph were born two sons before the years of the famine came, whom Ashneth, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. The name Manasseh is number 4519 in the Strong's Concordance, meaning causing to forget. Joseph named his firstborn son Manasseh because at his birth, Joseph was able to forget his toil. The Hebrew word translated as toil is number 5999, meaning wearing effort. Joseph was able to forget his past. He was able to forget the days of his wearisome effort that had seemed to lead to nothing but enslavement and imprisonment. After the birth of Manasseh and putting the past behind him, Joseph's second son Ephraim was born. The name Ephraim is number 669 in the Strong's Concordance, meaning double fruit. Literally, God had blessed Joseph with two sons, or double fruit. From another point of view, the birth of Joseph's two sons was during the 7 years of plenty before the famine. These were years that were doubly fruitful. Because of God's warning about the famine, Joseph's efforts to store up grain during these years would save the lives of many people. Now, these years were not full of wearisome effort. These years would bring life to the Egyptian people, as well as life to the family that he had all but forgotten. But Jacob's blessing was that God would make Israel as Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim's name comes first, so the blessing is reversed. We can expand on the meaning of the blessing by using the meaning of the names Ephraim and Manasseh and the context in which Joseph used them. The blessing could read something like this: May you be doubly fruitful, and then forget the wearisome effort of the past and the wrongs suffered in your father's house. This blessing has proved to be true over the millennia since Jacob uttered them. The nation of Israel has suffered and continues to suffer afflictions from those who hate them without cause. In spite of the afflictions, God has made the Jewish people doubly fruitful wherever they go. When Joseph entered slavery in Potiphar's house, God was with him and made everything he did prosper. Genesis 39, verse 3. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand. The same thing was true when Joseph was thrown into prison. The overseer of the prison put everything under Joseph's authority. Genesis 39, verse 23. The keeper of the prison did not look into anything that was under Joseph's authority, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it prosper. The people and the nations that welcome the Jewish people have been blessed throughout the millennia. Now, why did Jacob single out Joseph's 2 sons for this blessing? Jacob decided to adopt Ephraim and Manasseh as his own sons. Look at Genesis 48, verses 5 and 6. And now your 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. Your offspring, whom you beget after them, shall be yours. They will be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. It all goes back to the custom of the inheritance of the firstborn. In the ancient Near East, the custom was to divide the father's inheritance into equal parts, with the firstborn son receiving 2 portions and the other sons each receiving 1 portion. Now Jacob's firstborn son was Reuben, the son of his first wife Leah. The double portion should have rightly gone to Reuben. However, Jacob refused to give Reuben the double portion because he slept with Jacob's concubine Bilhah. When Jacob gives his final blessing to all his sons, he says this about Reuben in Genesis 49, verse 4. Unstable as water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Jacob disqualified his next 2 sons, Simeon and Levi, because of the violence that they instigated against the entire city of Shechem, because of the rape of their sister Dinah. Now this leads to Jacob's 4th son, Judah, like his older brothers, all sons of Leah, or to Joseph, the firstborn son of Rachel. Jacob chose to split the inheritance, passing on the promise of Abraham to Judah and giving the double portion to Joseph. Ephraim and Manasseh would each receive a portion of the inheritance, giving Joseph a double portion through his 2 sons. Now the Bible does not record that Joseph had other sons. Now if he did so, they would have been included in the line of Ephraim and Manasseh. Now this is all very interesting, but what does the adoption of Ephraim and Manasseh as Jacob's sons have to do with the blessing on Israel, that they be like Ephraim and Manasseh? Now with the birth of Ephraim and Manasseh, the Scriptures introduce a pair of brothers who do not have anger, hatred, or jealousy between them. They are almost always shown together. When the children of Israel are encamped around the tabernacle in the wilderness, the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh are next to each other. In the allotment of the land in Israel, the tribes of Ephraim and the half-tribe of Manasseh have adjoining parcels of land. To be like Ephraim and Manasseh is to put away enmity between brothers. Ephraim and Manasseh were born of an Egyptian mother, while Joseph was separated from Jacob or Israel. Joseph was, of course, separated from his families because of the enmity between him and his brothers. This separation made Ephraim and Manasseh strangers to Israel. Now we know that Joseph is a type of Messiah. He, like Yeshua, was rejected by his brothers, and his message of salvation was, in a sense, sold to the Gentiles. Yeshua's offspring are those of us born to him during the 2,000 years of his exile from the people of Israel. We are like Ephraim and Manasseh. We are adopted or grafted into Israel. And we are like Reuben and Simeon, children of Israel. The blessing, however, is to all of Israel, that they be like Ephraim and Manasseh. The blessing is that all of Israel be adopted back into the family of Israel. Now, look, Paul explains it this way in Romans 11, 17 and 18. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. But if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but that the root supports you. Then skipping down to verse 23, Paul continues, and they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. Now, every time this blessing is spoken over the children of Israel, the request is that they repent of their sins and be grafted back into the family of Israel. Paul's prayer is that they not only repent, but believe that Yeshua is their Messiah and enter into the family of saved Israel. So as we go back and examine the specific blessing over Ephraim and Manasseh, we learn more about the whole blessing. When Jacob began the blessing, it was not as Jacob, but as Israel. Look at Genesis 48, 13 and 14. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. Then Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, guiding his hands knowingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. The name Israel means the one who struggled with God and man and prevailed. This is a name of victory and spiritual transformation. The blessing follows in Genesis 48, verses 15 and 16. And he blessed Joseph and said, God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has fed me all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, let my name be named upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. The blessing over Ephraim and Manasseh is a blessing over Joseph. To bless Ephraim and Manasseh is to bless Joseph. Israel is also very clear about who he calls to bestow the blessing. Israel calls on the God of Abraham and Isaac. He calls on the God who has been with him throughout his life and redeemed him. Israel asked that his name, the name of victory, be placed on Ephraim and Manasseh. As those who are grafted into Israel, we also receive the name of Israel upon us. We receive the name of victory. We have all had our individual battles against God and man and have prevailed. The second provision of the blessing is that Ephraim and Manasseh grow into a multitude in the earth. The word for multitude in this passage is number 7230, robe, meaning abundance. The literal meaning is that they would have an abundant number of descendants. The word for earth is number 776, eretz, meaning to be firm, referring to the earth, land, country, or field. Now, is the blessing that they be a multitude in the land of Israel, the land where they are living, or is it the entire earth? The simplest meaning is that they be a multitude in the land of Israel, which was certainly true. Now, when the children of Israel entered the promised land, the total number of Ephraim and Manasseh was greater than that of any other tribe. Later, the allotment of the tribes placed Ephraim and half tribe of Manasseh in the geographic center of the land of Israel. Now, we who are adopted into Israel through Yeshua have become an abundance throughout the earth. Now, may those of Israel who are adopted back in also be in abundance throughout the earth. Although the blessing was that both Ephraim and Manasseh be a multitude, Israel placed his right hand on Ephraim, placing Ephraim before Manasseh, because Ephraim would be greater than Manasseh. Joseph tried to get Israel to place his right hand on Manasseh, the oldest son, but Israel insisted that his right hand must go on Ephraim. Genesis 48, 18 through 19. And Joseph said to his father, "Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations." The word multitude in this verse is number 4393, melo, meaning fullness. Ephraim's descendants would be a fullness of nations. In the same chapter of Romans, right before Paul talks about both being grafted into Israel, he also speaks about the fullness of the nations. He begins his discourse asking if Israel had been rejected by God. Then he vehemently rejects this statement, going on to say that their fall has opened up salvation to the Gentiles. Romans 11 through 12. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Certainly not. But through their fall, to provoke them to jealousy, salvation has come to the Gentiles. Now if their fall is riches for the world, and their failure riches for the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? The word Gentiles is number 1484, ethnos, meaning a race, people, or nation. In the Brit Hadashah, or New Testament, ethnos is translated as either nations or Gentiles. We've already connected this passage in Romans 11 with the blessings on Ephraim and Manasseh. In this context, a better translation of ethnos would be nations instead of Gentiles. Paul says that through the stumbling of Israel, the nations have received salvation. This is great. The nations have received incredible riches through the stumbling of Israel, but the nations will receive even more through the fullness of Israel. At this point, Paul goes on to explain the concept of being grafted into Israel, or in terms of Ephraim and Manasseh, being adopted into Israel. Paul comes back to the idea of fullness as he wraps up his argument. Israel will remain blinded in part until the fullness of the nations has come in. Look at Romans 11, 25 through 26. For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Why is Ephraim associated with the fullness of the nations? Ephraim was the first tribe to rebel against the house of David. Jeroboam of the tribe of Ephraim led the 10 tribes to revolt against Solomon's son Rehoboam, forming the northern nation of Israel, separated from Judah. The chronicler records that this rebellion continued to the day the chronicles were completed. 2 Chronicles 10, verse 19. So Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day. The chronicler records over and over again that all the kings of Israel followed after the way of Jeroboam, who caused Israel to sin. Jeroboam caused Israel to sin. He caused them to reject the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. This is the part of Israel that remains blind. These are the ones who, in Yeshua's time, rejected Yeshua, the son of David. Yeshua's followers rightly identified him as the son of David. The Gospel of Matthew opens with Yeshua's identity as the son of David. Matthew 1, verse 1. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Because of those who stumbled in the likeness of Ephraim, salvation has come to the nations. When the fullness of the nations has come in, the blindness of Israel will be lifted, and then all Israel, including Ephraim, will be saved. Until then, may God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. May you be adopted into the family of Israel, bearing the name of victory over your trials. May you be fruitful wherever God leads you, forgetting all the afflictions of your enemies. Thanks for watching today. I'm Dan Cathcart, and this has been Shadows of the Messiah. Shalom, and be blessed.